This video will demonstrate how to get started with SpecView by selecting your instruments from SpecView's template list. If you start SpecView without a license key, also called a dongle, this is the first screen you will see, and you can run SpecView in demo mode by clicking this button here. If you do have a license key, the demo button is replaced with Select Create Project. To get started, click that button. This box shows a list of the projects that are on your PC. We have installed some demonstration projects, which we hope will be useful in showing you some of the ways SpecView can be configured. In this video, we are going to start our own project, and we can do that in two ways. Test comms for new project is the first way. When you use this feature, you will tell SpecView what kind of instruments you have and how they are connected to your PC. There is another video that describes how all this works. If you do not have your instruments connected to the PC, or if you are not sure whether your instruments support the Test Comms feature, select NewManualProject. This will let you choose what instruments you have from SpecView's template list. Click NewManualProject. Enter a meaningful name. We will call this Curing Ovens. SpecView will create a subfolder under the SV3 installation folder with this name. This folder will contain all the information about your project, including screen files, recipe, and data log files. We are now in SpecView's edit mode. Click the red V on the toolbar to open the variables list. This is the heart of SpecView, and it shows you what instruments you have in your project. Since this is a new project, the list is empty, except for SpecView's own variables. To add instruments to the variables list, click the blue T to show the templates list. This list shows you all the instruments that are in SpecView's database. To add instruments, we need to know certain details. One note: if you have questions on how to check or edit the settings in your instruments, please contact the manufacturer rather than ask SpecView. First, we need to know what instruments we have. In this case, we have two, a Honeywell DCP-200 and a Yokogawa UP55A. The DCP-200 is in the section called Honeywell MB3. Next, we need to know what communications protocol are being used. Think of this like the language we will use to talk to it. Some instruments can be set to use more than one protocol. In this case, both are set to Modbus protocol, which is the most common. How is it connected to the PC? If you are using RS-232 or RS-485, you need to know first what COM port is it connected to. You may have to use Device Manager to find out what COM port has been assigned to your RS-485 or 232 connection. Please ask your local PC expert if you need help with this. We are connecting the DCP-200 with RS-485, and we are using COM3. Next, what communications settings does it have? We are connecting to the DCP-200 using RS-485, and the settings are baud rate 38400, 8 data bits, no parity, 1 stop bit. This is normally expressed as 8N1 and is the default driver setting for SpecView. We will now add the DCP-200 to our project. Double-click DCP-200 or highlight it and click Create Instrument. Enter a name for the instrument. We'll call it Oven 1. You are allowed spaces and special characters, but that can cause problems later on. For example, if you use a comma as part of the name, it may cause difficulties when it is used in a comma-separated variable or CSV file. Similarly with dashes, they can be considered minus signs in some file formats. Also, be consistent. If this is named oven 1, do not name the next one oven space 2, because that may cause problems if you're trying to rename things later on. Set the COM port and settings to match the PC and instrument settings. We needed COM3, 38,400 baud, and driver settings are okay for this instrument. We could set it to 8N1, but as we said before, those are the default driver settings. Check that the slave address matches the setting in the instrument. On an RS-485 network, each instrument must be assigned a unique slave address. Look at the instrument and see how many decimal places it is showing. This instrument is showing 77.8 using a decimal place, so we will set the decimal places to 1. Offset and extra are usually left blank. Click Create, and the instrument is added to the variables list. We will now add the UP55A. This instrument is connected using Ethernet and Modbus protocol. Scroll to Yokogawa Modbus and click the plus sign. Find the UP55A and double-click. Enter the name, Oven 2. With Modbus TCP, you need to know the TCP IP address of the instrument, and you also need to know its slave address. This is normally 1, but please check with the instrument manufacturer if you're not sure. Change the COM port to TCP IP. Enter the TCP IP address. Check the slave address and enter the decimal places as before. The port is 502, which is the default setting for Modbus TCP. You can leave that blank. Click Create, and the instrument appears in the variables list underneath the previous one. Some complex instruments are split into 2 or more instrument views in SpecView. The ramp-soak program part of a UP55A is an example. We need to create an instrument for it as well as the main instrument. This is the instrument view for the program part of a UP55A. Double-click. We'll call this Oven 2 Program. The settings are the same as the main instrument view. Slave address 1, decimal places 1, create. And it is added to the variables list underneath the other instruments. It takes a little while because there's so many parameters in that instrument. You can now close the template list and begin configuring your SpecView graphical display windows. We hope this helps getting you set up manually defining instruments on your SpecView system.